series where we're going behind the scenes with pastors and they're speaking out on the pandemic. I'm your host, Cicely Clary, and we're going to be going into the topic, are you surviving or are you thriving after this pandemic, and what are you going to do about it? We have our special guest, and his name is Pastor Hatcherson. He will be giving us steps on creating wealth and also getting more information on financial services and upgrading the churches of financial services. So I would like to introduce you all the way from Alabama, Pastor Hatcherson. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Church Anywhere Ministry. Today we have such a great guest. He's coming from Birmingham, Alabama, and he is also a pastor. He has been in ministry for over 28 years, if I'm not mistaken, 28 years.
Right.
And he has some amazing information to share in regards to how we're going to upgrade the financial services of the churches. So I can't wait, tune in, and we're going to just dive right into this. So let me introduce you all to Pastor Hatcherson. Hello, Pastor Hatcherson. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm so happy to have you on this call today. And we're just going to dive into some of these questions that everybody has definitely been wanting to know in regards to how we're going to keep the church thriving, after COVID-19. So that is our topic today. How are we going to thrive after COVID-19? And Pastor Hatcherson definitely has some amazing information or some juicy information for us. So let's ask him. So how long have you been in ministry?
28 years as a pastor. I actually began preaching 32 years ago. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
32 years ago. So
this is my
that's how
third
you got
pastorate.
into your calling? Just kind of explain to us how you got into preaching.
There was always this inclination to preach. I kept it clandestine. My parents sensed it, but we never talked about it. But my freshman year in college, the burden to preach became overwhelming. And so finally I submitted to it. And my first semester as a college student, I preached my first sermon. And my senior year as a college student, I started pastoring my first church.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. So you mean tell me you were in the prime of your college years, and while everybody was out having fun, getting to know everybody, God felt just called you during that time.
That's exactly what happened.
Oh,
that's exactly what happened. I started and worked in college, so I didn't have a traditional college life at all. But God opened so many doors. I was preaching more then than I'm doing now as a pastor.
Well, certainly those college students definitely needed a voice to kind of reel them back into the order of things, because everybody knows when you're in college, that's the time that you're definitely being adventurous. That's the best word, being adventurous, and maybe God is not on the forefront. So to have a young man like yourself being called by God during that time, that's awesome. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So we want to also know about your plans in ministry, like during the pandemic, right? This is a question that I ask frequently, but everybody has different answers to this question. So during the pandemic or before the pandemic, were you all prepared for this?
We were better prepared than we thought we were. I have been admittedly one of the persons who did not embrace technology immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally embraced the option to include giving online and giving via text. We started it and the pandemic hit probably 2 months later. So the timing ended up being perfect. It gave us enough time to get acclimated to it. It gave the congregation enough time to start feeling comfortable experimenting with it. And so when the pandemic hit, there was still this excitement about the newness of it. And I just think to myself, if I'd waited 3 months later, we would not have been prepared.
Okay. So there was a newness, and let me just kind of explain this. There was a newness to your text to give, or how was that?
Yes, the text to give.
The text to give.
And the online giving. There's several that's out there. Most pastors in this area are using Giglify, but we use Breeze. But they do essentially the same thing. You just go online and you give, and it's a simple process. You put in the amount you want to give, and it sends you an immediate receipt. We get it at the church to show that this person has given. So when it's time for tax season, all we have to do is download their information. So the bookkeeping is simpler. So yeah, it worked out perfectly for us in terms of the timing.
Got it. So you incorporated Breeze, and you've incorporated the text to give for you all. There's some people that are being a little bit more aggressive during planning or surviving this pandemic. There are some people who are, or some pastors or organizations that are really taking Facebook and really implementing Instagram Live as their source of connecting and reaching to new audiences and also their current flock. Do you all practice that at all, or?
We use Facebook Live. We were already doing YouTube, so that helps. We have meetings, small group meetings using Zoom. So those are the social media venues we're currently using. And but at the same time, one of the things that I did without any regret at all is when the pandemic first hit, I was literally on conference calls with doctors, politicians, et cetera, pastors, really just getting informed about this virus. Much of the information that they gave has been consistent. I think the narrative has been twisted in some ways, but the fundamental information has been the same. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure that whatever we did in our physical facility, that it not only kept us safe, but it made those who attended feel safe.
Got it.
So at one while, the state mandate was 25 or less. So our attendance, of course, shrunk down to initially my son, myself, and the musicians.
Got it.
And then it picked up a little with deacons and other officers, but then the city mandate shifted to 10 or less. And so we had to make those adjustments again. But what we did do is we kept the office open. I've never missed a Sunday in the pulpit, even when it was just my son and I. The office never closed. So people were still coming by. So there was still this sense of connectedness. The concern was the adults stay connected, but we've got to make sure we keep the youth connected.
Yes, absolutely.
And so my young adults kind of stepped up, a young adult praise team. They use the acrostic gang, God's Anointed New Generation.
Awesome.
And so what they would do, they would sing, and then they would incorporate some of the kids so that they were being acclimated into the group as well. And so even with the group, it's about 5 people. So they can use the choir stand and practice social distancing and still sing.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. We do want to keep everyone engaged. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about, and keeping them socializing, and also having a place of refuge that they can come to is the idea. Whether we're going to make that happen virtually and also physically, right? The other question is about how large is your congregation? Did I ask that? I mean, how large is that?
Yeah, it's we're about 500 members.
500.
Yes, about 500 members.
So your method of maintaining, which I've heard you did do the Breeze, which is an online text to give. You've implemented that. Mail in. Do you all currently have a website?
We do. Very little of our giving comes to the website, though. Most people use the Breeze or the text to give. I love the text to give because
Text to give has been
Yeah.
number one for on the list. Okay. And then drop offs, because you say under the city's regulations or the stipulations of your city. And keep in mind, everybody, each city is different. He's in
Right.
Birmingham, Alabama. That's where we're calling, this call is coming from, Birmingham, Alabama. And we're going to be continuing to share the thoughts and views of pastors all over the world right now, because we really want you all to see the intensity of this pandemic and how it is definitely affecting the churches and our ministries and also our communities. It's not really about, we want to bring a remedy for our ministries, but it is an outreach program that we're outreaching to the communities that it serves. So I know that was a 2-part answer that we didn't go into when you said this prior to me before, and I'm just going to mention it again to you, that in order for the churches to survive, the community has to survive as well.
Yeah, I think it's critical, and if any good thing has come out of this pandemic, I think 2 things would first come to my mind. The first one is that it has required of us to expand our methodologies.
Mm.
And then secondly, it requires of us to zero in on our specific responsibility as a church.
Yes, yes.
And if the church as a whole is to survive, then the members of the church have to survive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the whole concept that Jesus gave, give and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together. It is not just members giving and receiving, it's also the church giving and receiving.
Yes.
And one of the things that I am determined and committed to do is to, as best I can, articulate to the congregation and the community that the church is not just looking to receive, we're seeking to give.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
we had already a health and wellness ministry, but one of the things that happened with the conference calls with doctors is the worst part of this pandemic is that we have a nation filled with people who have pre-existing conditions. And if we don't address those pre-existing conditions, then once a person with pre-existing conditions tests positive for the coronavirus, then the risk heightens tremendously. I think right now the nation is approximately at 160,000 deaths from coronavirus. But every year we're having 670,000 people dying from heart disease and 590,000 people dying from cancer. And so the church has to address that. One of the things I've said to the church repeatedly is that, oftentimes our custom is we feed families after a funeral.
Mhm.
And I said, we don't need to be a church that feeds families the food that just killed their loved ones. So
Mm.
we've had to amplify our message of health and wellness. So our health and wellness ministry is even now modernizing some of its approaches so that, you know, when you talk about being a pandemic proof church, we've got to be a church that promotes overall health year round. Our finances, one of the things that has hurt the memberships and the community across the nation is that a lot of people are out of work. A lot of people with businesses, their businesses are suffering.
That's true.
So
That's
if
true.
if we only have one financial program, and that is tithe and God will bless you,
Mhm.
then we're
Mhm.
missing the overall teaching of finance in the Bible. The Bible talks about money more than any other single topic. There are principles such as sowing and reaping, but we've got to teach so many other principles. There are principles
Absolutely.
where you can use debt to build wealth. That's a biblical principle where a woman was to borrow jars and the prophet told her, borrow as many as you can. And
Mm.
as many jars as you get, the oil will flow until you run out of jars. Then when you get the jars full of oil, sell them, and then you can live off that for the rest of your life. So
Right.
that's using debt to buy an appreciating item rather than a depreciating item. But that's a whole nother concept that as a church, we're amplifying our teaching. We're trying to show people we've got to be producers, not consumers. And the concept of focusing on financial wellness is not anti-Christianity. It is a part of Christianity. It
It's
is a part of
definitely a part of it. So this particular episode, I definitely want to dig deeper on how we can really stabilize the church's financial service industry, and not dependent on tithe, but just on some of their own endeavors, like pastors diving into how they can sustain their ministry. Now, here's a bit of a credential for you. I know that you also have your own company and business, Hatcherson Horizon Unlimited, and that is a financial planning company which gives information and details about debt elimination. Is it some tax information there too, or just tell me a little bit more about your LLC?
Yeah, I've developed a team of people so that no one person does it all,
Mm-hmm.
including me. Um, the area that I love to talk about is educating people on how to see finances. Um, but we also have a, a banker who focuses on budgets. And one of the things that we promote with her is not just budgeting to survive, but budgeting to build wealth. According to Proverbs, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then most people have their tax forms filled out incorrectly. And as a result, they're giving away too much in taxes. And when they get a tax refund at the end of the year, they celebrate it, not realizing, number one, it's their money. Number two, in addition to it being their money, they could have gotten it throughout the year and been investing it throughout the year rather
Absolutely.
than waiting until the end of the year to file for it and then getting it. So we have someone who specializes on showing how to do that, credit repair, um, debt elimination, and one of the newest piece is the insurance area. And again, as a pastor, one of the things that I have discovered is that 90+% of the people who call the church during the week are not calling to get a word of faith from me or even a prayer of faith from me. they're looking for some financial or material blessing. And if the only approach we use is to give them monetary resources, then we're really not helping them. We have to deal with both crisis and chronic problems. Crisis problems, a pandemic is a crisis, but a chronic problem is you were going through this before the pandemic. And if it's chronic, then we have to come up with a systemic way for you to overcome your chronic problem so that you can be better equipped to handle crisis in the future.
So it would be safe to say that our churches are like the pillars in our community that can be a strong educational piece of the puzzle for our communities, like in educating. So it's just like that parable of, you can give a man a fish and he's going to eat for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you know, he'll eat for a lifetime.
Right, right.
Thing. So I'm also an insurance broker, and I know that it is very, very strategic in doing, when it comes to your finances and your planning, putting people, or just in general, individuals, entities can also participate in some of those insurance products that can sustain them, that will grow their money as well. Did you have any advice, like some financial advice for these pastors on, just like someone who's never heard of this? They never heard of key man insurance. They've never heard of annuities that they can roll over and make investments on. They never heard of the debt consolidation. They never heard of those things, or maybe even repairing their business credit or starting a business credit. Maybe there's some information that you would like to share with them so that they can have a stronger foundation financially in preparing, like step 1, 2, and 3. What would you say the first thing that an organization like the church would need to do to have a strong financial background?
Well, step 1, I would say to pastors, and for many pastors, this may be difficult, it was for me years ago, is admitting that just because you're solid in the word does not mean that you're solid in financial education. Seek out help. Be humble enough to embrace help, and develop a team of people who can help you in the administration of things like finances. We have to see money as seed, not crop. And as long as we see it as crop, then we'll get it and eat it. And that's a quick way to debt and poverty. We have to see it as seed. When I get money, how can I use it to invest in the kingdom? And one of the things that I think is helpful, and that was the piece that I was alluding to earlier, is that if the community can see that the church is meeting the needs of the community, then they will willingly give back. But if they see that the resources are only meeting the needs of the staff, then people will sit back and call us greedy. And so Jesus says, let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify the Father. So we have to let people see that we are meeting the needs of the community, be it by ministries or even financing ministries that will better stabilize those who are our parishioners and those in the community.
I'm definitely a strong believer of having some financial literacy courses implemented with the churches, during webinars, and I know that you all do that in your ministry. Also, there is another project that you're working on to sustain the health of the community as well, and that was with the housing authority.
Yes, years ago I was president of the Ministers Conference, and one of the things that I wanted to see done was that the churches in Birmingham start seeing themselves not as the churches, plural, in Birmingham, but the church, singular, in Birmingham, such as the church in Corinth in the Bible, the church at Ephesus, the church at Philippi, so the church at Birmingham. And so there are myriads, there's a myriad of needs in Birmingham that the church needs to speak to. But if I, as pastor of 23rd Street, I'm trying to meet the need in my area of town, south side of Birmingham, and then another church over in Inslee is trying to meet the need, but that church may be stronger in that area than I am. So if I'm trying to do what they're doing, then we run the risk of trying to compete when we never should be competing or comparing, we should be completing.
Completing,
So,
wow.
So
Wow.
one of the things that happened in Birmingham is that there was a church, a mega church, that moved one of its locations out of the suburbs to the inner city.
Yes.
And many of the African American churches were bothered by that for various reasons. Well, during the pandemic, the pastor of that church had been found making some supportive comments and even inviting a known racist. And because of that, it caused a big mess, for lack of a better word,
I
in
can totally
Birmingham.
understand that. I'm sure it did.
Yes, because that church in the inner city was attracting a large portion of African Americans, and yet the pastor was supporting racist comments and bringing a man known to be a racist to speak to the children. But so the housing authority in Birmingham pulled its alliance with that church away.
Okay.
But what we discovered was that church literally was involved in practically everything in the city. The school system, the housing authority, homelessness, I mean, just everything. So it created a vacuum. And so the vision that I had as president of the Ministers Conference years ago came back to one of the pastors who was actually one of my officers when I was president. And he says, let us pull the churches together now and fill the void. So what we are doing here at 23rd Street is we're not so much creating something new, but we are amplifying what we were already doing.
Got it.
So that what this particular church was doing on this side of town, now we become the source that the community looks to, so that we're doing already what we were doing, but we've amplified it. So we're also trying to fill the void of that church.
Got it.
And
I
we've
love
got
it.
churches all over the city that's doing the same thing.
Oh man, that is so amazing, right? That is so amazing. It's great. I love that that there's some really great-hearted people, or just dedicated people that are in a church, dedicated pastors that has the foresight, the vision, visionaries, right? Visionary is the best word that I can use for this. We have visionaries who will implement their plans and execute their plans just for us, or just for the community, for you and I. So I really love what you all are doing over there. That's awesome. Yeah. And we really do want everyone and all of the other organizations around the world to also learn some tactics that's going to help them strive. So we're going to just recap on some of the things that you all were doing and maintaining. So text to give, mailing in, drop off. You do have a website, but you say your website is not getting that much traffic. And you never—
in terms of giving. Which
one has been the most productive in giving? You said the text, right?
Text for those who have not come back to the physical facility. We still have several people who, in fact, we had some services, parking lot services. I was actually in the sanctuary, but they were in their cars and social media. And we had deacons who would go out to the cars and they would just hand their tithe envelopes to the deacons.
Okay.
There were some who will come in during the week and drop it off in a tithe box and
Got
then
it.
leave. So there's still the majority of our giving is still people who are coming in, but second to that is the text to give.
The text to give would be the second, and then drop off would be the first. So
Right.
this has always been a touchy subject, tithe, and people in the community feeling like churches are going over and beyond to sustain themselves. So, and they need someone to tithe. And that's their overall goal, which that's so far from the truth, right? We're just given an opportunity where you can give your 10% so that you can be blessed.
Right.
There has been some arguments on social media and Facebook where there are some pastors that are asking people to pay for blessings, and also on top of that just to give to their Cash App and to sow a seed for this. How do you feel about that? I mean, how do you feel about that approach?
I definitely know that the pastor in the church has to be very careful not to be guilty of creating opportunities to manipulate people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to be very careful. And because of that, I'm probably not as aggressive with non-members as I could be, because I think more would probably give, but I don't want anyone to think that I am replacing the word for raffles, if you will. Yeah.
No, I hope not. No, I don't.
Yeah. And so that's why I really want to promote to people, we're still doing ministry. And because we're still doing ministry, ministry costs. So if you give, do know that you're giving to ministry. I have not yet used my personal Cash App for anything church related. I want people to know that if you want to give to the church, it's going to the church. The church is planning to celebrate my 20th year as pastor next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So there probably will be some exposure to my Cash App for that one-time event. But other than that, I do not want people to think that they're sowing into the ministry, but they're giving to me.
We don't want to frown upon that, because Cash App is also just another tool, a digital tool that people can also use to give. On top of that, this pandemic has brought out it's brand new to us all. So there are some survival skills that can be tweaked a little bit, and we can learn some virtual etiquette in regards to it, but we definitely wouldn't want to frown upon it, because it's just brand new to everyone. So let's talk about, how do the churches thrive, right? If we're going to implement some of those virtual etiquette systems inside of our structure. So one of the ways, like if your organization and you're not doing those things that Pastor Hatcherson elaborated on in regards to his text to give, the drop-off method, the mail-in method, the your website, if you don't have a website up, then that is the very basic foundation of your ministry. And if you're not doing that, it will be difficult for you to maintain. Another way of striving, all right, we're going to be thriving during this pandemic. I apologize about that, but thriving during this pandemic would be to implement social media, but was done tastefully, because on Facebook and on Instagram, you can have yourself 5,000 followers, you can have 1 million followers, but that doesn't mean that all of your messages are being reached out to that audience. So there is a strategic way of you all learning the analytics of social media so that you all can put yourself on a platform. So my job and my goal as a business consultant, I definitely want to train and teach everyone in regards to how to build a virtual altar and some virtual etiquettes and promote their product and sustain themselves with some virtual platforms. One great platform for our pastors, if you want to be thriving during the COVID, I would say podcasting. Podcasting is a great way for you all to get your message out there, to record your messages, to also keep your members connected and engaged with side notes, not in relation when it comes to not related to ministry, but just related to a topic. You might want to talk about mental health. You might want to be doing a podcast in regards to financial services that you're having right now. So we want to get into the podcast mode. If you have a specialty, that would be a really great way of you connecting and keeping your members engaged and also new members engaged. The other one is, successfully using the social media platforms. There are a lot of pastors that are just going on and doing the Facebook Live and putting their Cash App up there. But again, you're not reaching the total amount of your audience when you do that. And it just opens up a small window for you, or a small window of opportunity of whomever would be watching you during that moment, during that time. So you definitely want to drive your market. And once you have your market, which is collecting their email address, collecting the phone numbers, collecting something tangible so that you all can stay in constant contact with your members. And then when you're in constant contact with your members, what are you going to do? How are you going to do that? Well, that was where your email marketing may come into place. Email marketing is so simplified now. It is advanced. During this COVID season, email marketing has stepped their game up more because they are now implementing where you can have like posts on all your social media platforms. They are giving free landing pages and websites, or creations of websites. And 3, they are also keeping your members engaged with either text or their email. You can also upload some of your events, things that are coming up, so that you can stay connected in the community. And the email marketing is, I would say, that would be the best route for churches to get on board with. I do have a partnership with Constant Contact, and they are amazing. We're going to have to go through a tutorial on one of my next episodes so that you all can really see the benefits of stepping it up and thriving and using digital products and getting comfortable using digital products to service the community and to get your message out there. So we don't want to exclude the Facebook Lives. You definitely got to do the Facebook Lives, but the Facebook Live can be more of a place where you're going to drive your market to the next platform, where you would talk to them, where you would tell them, hey, you know what? We're having this amazing event. I can't wait. You got to share this. Come on out. I'm going to be there at this date, this time. Then that becomes a strategic social media marketing or virtual etiquette for our ministry, right? We just need a little bit of guidance there. So it seems like your church is doing well. You have your 500 members. And has it grown during COVID-19, or do you see a decline in your membership?
I think we're maintaining, because in addition to some of the things I mentioned, we're doing the group text, the newsletters, the band, which is an app. We've had a few members join, but during this time, we can't really see the level of commitment or consistency. So I'll just say we're maintaining at this point. But we're moving back to something, some sense of normalcy. And I think in the next couple of months, we'll be able to see really where we are.
Well, one solution to that would, like I said, with the email marketing, It's only $14.99 a month, right? Super convenient, super cheap. And you will be able to track the participation rate and to see who's coming to your events with that. So it's more like a scheduler. It has a scheduling feature in it. It also has where you can, on top of seeing your newsletters, who you're sending your newsletters out to, how many people are participating. It gives them the option of saying yes, no, maybe, that they're going, so that you can really start to monitor and keep in contact and keeping your members engaged in that factor. So again, if that's something you all are interested in sharing, make sure that you reach out to me and send me an email, or just, you know, find me on social media on all those platforms, Cicely Clary, so that we can make sure that we get in contact and grow this organization more. But next, I do wanted to ask this question again here. So how is your organization going to make God's kingdom pandemic proof? Like, do you have some plans on how you all are maybe going to do that?
Yeah, I think it's making sure that the church remains the church, that we're still going into all the world, going, including technology, going, still making telephone calls, you know, emails, newsletters, but going and making sure that we are addressing underlying needs and making sure people know that we are addressing those needs, that we're not just trying to keep the building with lights and air conditioner. We're actually going to meet the needs of people.
Yes.
And my experience has been, when people see needs being met, they will support it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree with you there wholeheartedly. And this is one of the reasons for this ministry, to assist churches in getting comfortable with this pandemic and getting comfortable using the virtual product, so that we can truly become the strong pillars of the community that we are, and have a stronger outreach plan for our community, so that we can help as many people as possible. Right?
And I commend you on the great work that y'all are doing as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Well, I'm so excited about your ministry, and how it's going to continue to grow. I'm going to do a follow-up with you in a few, just to make sure, like, if you do take advantage of some of these digital strategies, and see how your church and your organization is growing. So I want to say thank you so much for this call. It's been amazing. And do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement that you want to give to some of the other leaders of the church today?
Well, in closing, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And again, I just want to celebrate the great work that you're doing and your commitment to it. And I just want to encourage pastors that in the process of us doing all we can to keep others healthy, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, even physically, let us make sure as well that we're taking heed to ourselves to make sure that we stay healthy also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You all are definitely putting yourself on the line out there. And that was beautiful. And well said. Well said. So everybody, thank you all for tuning in. It's been such a pleasure to just see you all in your beautiful faces today. And I'm so happy that you all came out. I hope that you all learned a little bit about how we're going to thrive after and during this pandemic. So I will talk to you all soon. Bye. All right, we're recording, but we're gonna end it. Hold on. And we can stop the recording now.